I'm Arlie Montalvo, president of the Riverside San Bernardino chapter of the California Native Plant Society. And I'd like to welcome you today to our October program. But before we start the program, I'm going to just update you a little bit on a couple of things that are going on with our chapter. Remember, we're one of, 36 chapters in California, including Baja California. And so the California Native Plant Society territory is rather large, and our Riverside San Bernardino chapter's territory is pretty darn big as well. It's all of Western Riverside and San Bernardino counties, going out into the Coachella Valley, and desert. So we have desert environments, high elevation mountain environments, lowland environments, lots of foothills and valleys, and a tremendous variety of native plants and vegetation types within our area. So it's really a fantastic area. And we are hoping to be able to do more field trips in the spring and summer. But what we need is a field trip coordinator for our chapter. It's very difficult for those of us that are on the board and have many other responsibilities to do that coordination. We fit in what we can, but if we had an actual field trip coordinator, we can have more field trips. So if you would like to volunteer to be our field trip coordinator, you can get a hold of me. You can just send an email to our RSB CNPS@gmail.com email address and say, put field trip coordinator interest or something in the subject line, and I will get back to you. So that would be fantastic. And Orchid?
Can I pitch into that? In my other chapter, we had a field trip chair who had never been on a field trip and was never going to go on a field trip. But she was just an organized person. So we can help you through this if you are an organized person.
Yeah.
Why don't you explain what some of the duties are?
Well, the field trip coordinator just tries to decide on what areas would be nice to visit at which times of the year, and then tries to find somebody to lead the field trip that knows the plants and the vegetation in that area. We can be very helpful in providing names and contact information for those people. They arrange the dates of the field trip that don't conflict with our program events. And then we offer those field trips. And what we've been doing is requesting that the people RSVP for the field trip so that we don't over subscribe people, because some of the field trips we have are in very, very sensitive areas with lots of little teeny rare plants. When we have those, we try to make it so that we have like a maximum of 20 people, or sometimes even 15, depending on the sensitivity of the area. So they handle the RSVPs, and then also it's good if they can go on the field trip and provide the sign-in waivers for the field trip and make sure people sign in when they're there. So,
but they don't have to do that.
It's administrative, but they don't have to, because they can make sure that they just have to make sure there's a board member that's going that can handle that part of it. So we can go over those sorts of details, but it would be wonderful if we had somebody that would fill in that position. And then also we could use a hospitality person to come to the programs when we meet in person and bring refreshments, set up the refreshment table, and help make sure people sign in, just welcome people. So those are two positions we'd really like to fill from our membership. The other thing I'd like to mention is that we have some exciting things coming up. November 2nd, we have our native plant sale here at the Riverside Corona Resource Conservation District. And it's during a sort of a native pollinator festival that the RCRCD is having that same day. And they are organizing workshops and lectures. There's some really cool lectures that will be presented that day right out in the Land Use Learning Center and one of the newer buildings that are out there. And our plant sale is right next to the Land Use Learning Center. So it'll be very convenient, and we'll have like about 200 different varieties of plants there. We will have bulbs and seeds for sale, and we're keeping our prices at this like they were last year, because we felt people are feeling stretched, these days, even if the economy is doing really well. They're feeling stretched, and so we're keeping our prices down. And then remember, if you're a member, you get a 10% discount. So renew your membership if you haven't, and I'll help some people after the meeting how you go about renewing your membership. And then if somebody joins for the first time at the plant sale, they'll be able to join at a discount and be able to get the discount that day on their merchandise. So it includes books and posters and plants and seeds and bulbs. So the Riverside plant sale is November 2nd. And then we have our exciting desert plant sale. It's going to be in Indio this year, and that's the Saturday, November 16th. That's why we're not having a program here on November 16th, because we want our people to be helping out at the plant sale in the desert. And so that's in lieu of our program for November 16th. Then in December, instead of having our program the third week of December, which is really close to the holidays, we've shifted our December program to the second Saturday. It will be December 14th, and we have an exciting speaker that day on Kumeyaay ethnobotany. So Michael Wilkin Robertson will be speaking that day. He will also bring his wonderful book. I have a copy of the book here that I can show people that are in the room. And he'll do a book signing. He'll sell books and do a book signing after the lecture. We will also, before the lecture, have a leftover plant sale. So we'll bring our leftover plants from the plant sale. We usually sell them at a discount, whatever's left over for that hour before the program. And we have a question from the back.
I'm just going to say that he's also going to bring baskets and different stuff from the
oh yes, so that's great. So Stephen Orr is the one that's organized that program. He knows Michael very well, and Michael is also going to bring some demonstration baskets and other things that are created using native plant materials. So it should be a really interesting day. So do plan to come in person as much as possible to that program. It will also be online. Yes?
What location?
It's going to be here at the Riverside Corona Resource Conservation District. It'll be in the same room where we're having our presentation today.
The second Saturday?
The second Saturday of December, which is December 14th. And the program's at 10 and our leftover plant sale is at 9. And it might end up having a few sold after the meeting as well. We'll see how it goes. Okay, so I think, and then we've already lined up a bunch of speakers for January through June. We just have to settle on the dates and get confirmation. But I think we're going to have an exciting winter spring session. We've already got June 21st lined up. Instead of meeting here and having a regular hybrid program, where Gina Richards is going to we'll have a program up in the mountains at the she says meadow, so orchid. So I'm always forgetting the name of the arboretum.
It will probably be in Sky Park.
It's probably going to be at Sky Park
Meadow
in the San Bernardino Mountains. So more information will be made available, certainly before that, at least a couple of weeks before that. So that'll be fun. We'll do like a picnic kind of meeting for the celebrating summer, I guess. So, and then some restoration projects and some really cool things that Gina's working on. So we'll have her give us a little lecture and then a little tour. So for now, it's now time for me to introduce the woman that's standing there with her lovebirds or parents. Those are parents. Those are macaws. I'm a little blurry-eyed today. And Linda Richards has been our garden ambassador for 5 years. now, and she's done a great job. And she and Betty Richards and a few other people have been organizing garden tours. And she gives lectures about using native plants to some nurseries and just helps to really get a lot of enthusiasm going on for native plant gardens. And she's also a writer, and she does an amazing job of writing little articles for newspapers and journals of various sorts. And so I don't want to spend too much time there, but we're very lucky to have her. And she has a beautiful native garden herself, and she's going to talk to us about seasonal beauty in native plant gardens. And I'm going to let you take over now.
Yeah,
Okay,
I'll
so
get that.
You'll get that.
I'll get it.
Okay,
Because
she's
I
better
haven't-
at it.
Hello, everybody. Should I start my intro?
Yeah.
Thank you. I don't have to say a whole lot after that. I did want to say I didn't know a California plant till I think 2003. I couldn't have named one of them. And we moved to San Diego County in 2002. I was from the Midwest originally, in Flagstaff, Arizona, where at least we had rain in the summer. And I had no idea there were parts of the nation that never had rain all summer long. I was shocked. I was also upset at my husband. And we happened to move here during a drought. And so still, despite this drought, the hillsides would come alive with color in the spring. And I thought, how can this happen? So I set out, I was determined to find out how plants here in California can survive. So it's been my mission, it's been my passion. So after we left San Diego County, going forward. Anyway, I'll just tell you, in 2008, we moved to Redlands, and lo and behold, we moved into a house where the lawn was dead, and we rejoiced. Here was our home in fall 2008. So it gave us an opportunity to rip out this lawn and start planting some California native plants that we had learned how to plant out in San Diego. So this is fall of 2008. And then 16 months later, we were lucky, it started to rain again. And so we had some good rains when we planted. So we had some non-natives in the front there, and it seems like a lot of those died out. But the ones that did well are manzanitas in the back here, our Cleveland sage, and we still have those today in buckwheats. So this is May 2023, our front yard. It's a little crazy, especially for some people. You can see our manzanitas all took off. We planted 5 different varieties. They've all survived. But there were mistakes, like you can see in the front here, the sage, I think we got too high a growing one, and we also didn't prune it in time, or prune it early enough. So if we did it again, we'd probably do some more pruning. So, and then what I plan to cover, this is going to be mostly Inland Empire based, not really too much desert plants. But I'm going to show our Redlands yard in different seasons, other examples, other yards and some parks in different seasons, favorite blooming plants. I'll try to point those out. And then favorite berry producers, because that's another great way to have seasonal color in your native plant garden. And then look for the asterisk. I try to do a good job of putting asterisk by the ones that the CNPS chapter sale should offer. So look for those. All right, so here's a comparison of that yard. Here's our manzanitas in the background here. And oops. You can see our fuchsia right here that's starting to grow in. This is in June. The sages, some of them have already bloomed. Cleveland sage tends to bloom a little bit later in June. So that's looking really pretty over here. I'll talk more about Nevins barberry, which is more of a rare native plant that we have like 6 of them in our yard. And then the brittle bush is one of those nice gray plants that in the spring has those gorgeous red flowers or yellow flowers that last into the summer. Then that same view, you can see this is in fall. The California fuchsias here are all blooming. Whoops. The brittle bush, you see, still offers that nice white color in the corner. And then our Menzies golden bush is kind of our highlight in the fall. I recommend anybody to get either this Menzies golden bush, or we're going to have California goldenrod, which again offers great color going into the winter time. Okay, and this is looking kind of the other direction. This is after in April, after we cut back the Menzies golden bush right here. It's a beautiful green color. We have our spring flowers with the penstemon and woolly blue curls. And then here is in fall. This is an October photo on the right, but you can see we have the St. Catherine's lace buckwheat that's blooming, or has bloomed and is now turning its nice rust color. And then this is when the golden bush really comes alive and has that nice color on the right. So this is my husband. He's putting water in a bird bath that's tucked here. This is on the other side of the manzanitas. And I didn't mention, he grew up in Pasadena, had a 38-year career with the Forest Service. So we made a good team. He knew about the plants in the wild and the ecosystem. So we kind of did this whole project together. And so in the June, obviously we have some of our sages blooming, and here we have, it's a whirly blue sage that of course has the hummingbirds that are coming in. So this is fast forward to October, California fuchsias. This is, we've learned to really cut them back hard in the wintertime and even pinch them. This is a Catalina fuchsia. And it grows a little rampant. So the next year, I think we did a little bit better with it in cutting back, but that's a view of a nice October color. So I think I feel like it's a must have. You have to have fuchsias in your yard. And then I would like to put a plug in for habitat value. That's something I've learned to just love about California native plants. Watching all the birds come and all these different insects. So remember to save some seeds for the birds. So here's some goldfinches in October on our California fuchsia. And then also we have them here. We leave some in December. They start looking a little ratty, but maybe if it's not on the median, you know, or the neighbor, it's not right there, you can leave some back there because the birds will still come and eat those later. And do that for all your seeds if you can. We did leave a little bit of lawn when we moved to Redlands. We had a dog, so we wanted to have some kind of lawn. So we had a combo of blue grama, which is a this one we're going to have at the sale. It's a native, and then buffalo grass is from the high plains. It's a western grass. So this is in the springtime. We cut it back once. Sometimes you can cut it back as many times as you want, but we end up just cutting ours back once in the winter time. So this is April. We've got California poppies right here, sunflowers, and then we have our sage, which in this case is bee's bliss. There's going to be a lot of sages available at the plant sale, and some different grasses too. So you look at the sunflower. Normally we have sunflowers year round, but that same sunflower got too crazy and the mailman was not happy about the sunflower and trying to get to our mailbox. So that went away. But normally we have more sunflowers here, more fuchsias, but you see we have a fuchsia. Oops. It's touchy. And then everlasting, I don't remember, this is a nice gray one that you'll see in some other ones that's growing in there. So we do have some native plants in containers and planters. So on the left here is the spring view. We have poppies and California bluebells, which is a Phacelia. There's going to be some Phacelias for sale. Baja fairy duster in this back planter offers red, beautiful red blooms much of the year. And then some poppies back there too. And then spring on the right, this is our blooming California fuchsias. And then in the pot, we have some everlasting. Oh, and then this next one. And then here we have Baja fairy duster, close up of it, everlasting that ended up growing through our pavers. And that's kind of us. If something finds itself between pavers, we tend to just leave it because it seems happy there. And it gets some water when we water the pot, and then some fuchsias. Another Oh, I didn't, and here I wanted to go back to that one. I want to show you, remember when you see these colors, you see the orange and the blue, and you see this beautiful red against green. Why do those pop so much? Remember complementary colors. It's going back to our art lessons. Yellow and purple looks great together. Blue and orange looks wonderful together. And it really pops when you have those red berries on a bright green plant. So I like to remind people, this is why our eyes like that, how we interpret that. Another container here. I don't know if I recommend this. We went with the Joshua trees, but we had success with one side, but we had this really hot areas with planters. Oops, and two sensitive fingers. On the left here, we have our bluebells and the fuchsia is starting to come in. And then on the right, in the fall, is where the fuchsias have come over and taken over that planter. Plan year-round color. This is my section on berries. It's good for color and also habitat value. If you want to keep birds around that are fruit eaters, try to have a berry year-round. Another thing that I've learned about berries is not all berry plants are created equal. They've shown research in the East with Doug Talamy that California native berries have a higher fat content. They're actually more nutritious, especially for migrating birds. So it's really good to have some berry native plants in your yard. Well, this is ceanothus. I want to make a plug for ceanothus or wild lilac. There's going to be, I think, eight or so varieties of ceanothus at sale. That's kind of a must-have. But here you can see the blossom is bringing in the bumblebees, and then it's turning to the fruit for the other birds. One of my favorites is Nevins barberry. It used to be in our canyons. I know in Redlands they can't find it anywhere because of drought and fires. I'm not aware of that. Maybe there's some around riverside areas and other areas, but we planted 4, and then we had a lot of other offspring from them. They all survived. This is in spring. We have these really nice yellow berries that really bring the insects. Here we have a butterfly. And then in June, we have the berries. They last June, July, and here it's pictured with a nice buckwheat down below. Just trying to gather place. And so here is an example of the mockingbirds. And it was so fun to watch our Nevins, because the first couple of years it didn't have berries, and then it started having berries, but the birds didn't recognize them. They went to seed. There were no birds eating them for at least a year. And then they slowly discovered them. And now once they appear, they go really quick because they're a real favorite of the birds. Another berry favorite is, and this is for part shade. Most of my slides are going to be sunnier areas. We can always answer some questions afterwards for more examples on the part shade. But Oregon grape and its cultivars do really well in the part shade and offer a berry, through the fall time. Hollyleaf cherry. This is a large one, but we have it. We love it. There's these big red berries that the birds love. Here on the right, we have the bush tits that are eating them, and that produces its berries in October. A couple others, we have snowberries on the left. This is from Caroline Park. I'll be talking a little bit about that. Kind of harder to find, but that's like a white berry. And then on the right, of course, there's the toyon, very large shrub. You have a big area, toyon, or I'm going to talk about sugar bush, are really great ones to have. But that's going to provide birds, their food in January, December. I'm going to give you now some examples from other landscapes and other public areas. This is Mana Saldana's yard. She was on the spring tour, and I thought she's done a really great job of incorporating natives in her yard. So this was in 2021 on the left. Oops, sorry. And then on the right was the spring during the spring in 2020. 3. So you can see in 2 years, it's coming very nicely. So I'm going to focus in on a couple of her areas in her yard. On the left here is during the yard tour this last time. You've got poppies right here in the foreground. And then she has some nice examples of buckwheats here. She has a seaside daisy. And then she has some good examples. I'm not going to have too many of grasses, but this is a deer grass earlier in the season. And this shows on the right how she's pruned. And she's much better at pruning than I am. But I think if you want to tidy your yard, this is a great example of how you can do that. Oh, and then I didn't mention this is a desert lavender in the back. And so this is the October view of it. And in person, it's even brighter. It was kind of hard to capture the beauty of it. But you have the California fuchsias, the buckwheats. This is the ashy leaf. And then on the other side, I'm going to show these plants over here. And then you can see the deerweed. They do get large. Deer grass, I mean, they do get large. Then on this other side, her Artemisia, the Artemisia Canyon Gray was looking really pretty and flowery. And then in back of that is one of my favorite buckwheats, is Warner Lytle. We're going to be having Artemisia Canyon Gray and a lot of these buckwheats, at the sale. This is another area. This is in her back. She has grass in parts of her area, and so this gets some irrigation from the grass. And she's got a lot of mallows here and buckwheats. And you can see in the springtime on the left, that's the desert mallow. This is in the summertime where it's a little bit in front of here, but this is where the buckwheat is really bringing that wonderful, wonderful white color. And then we have on the right, October, the desert mallow is starting to bloom again. So it's one that can bloom more than once a year. Other fall favorites, here's a couple examples of the goldenrod. This is in September on the left and in October on the right. And we are going to have that at the sale.
That was Isocoma.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I didn't notice that when I was looking
Oh,
through.
okay. So
Yeah.
correct.
But we will have, yeah, we will have the California goldenrod.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah.
All right, others that were doing well in her yard when I stopped by there a couple weeks ago was monkey flowers in the park shade area. So these are some park shade ones, and fragrant pitcher sage on the right with the blue flowers. She did warn that you have to cut back the pitcher sage, that it's a little bit too happy. So if you're willing to keep it in check, it's a good one to have. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about the Assistencia in Redlands. It's owned by the Redlands Conservancy. It was also on the yard tour in May, early May. I think I sometimes have said April, but it was actually the first weekend in May. So, and this was planted in 2 stages. In 2018, this front part, you can see they have lots of volunteers. And then they converted the grass in this back area in 2019. And so this was in the yard tour in May. Lots of great spring flowers. I've got the poppies, goldfields, tidy tips, and there's some Cecilia, that blue, the Cecilia. And then again, another one from May, looking at it. They have an Engelmann oak here, which will get larger and larger. They also have white sage that's offering a nice color, brittle bush, and a variety of sages and wildflowers.
We added Engelmann oak.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Engelmann oak is a great, if you're looking for an oak, it's a really wonderful oak. Doesn't get quite as large as the live oaks. So they're going to have those at the plant sale. And then in the fall, you can see they're going to be those fall colors, more of the rust and the green, and there's still some white. So we have the white sage in the foreground. I'm going to have a better picture of bladder pod, and then have a lot of buckwheats. And then on the side, here's another view of it. You can see the really nice colors of the buckwheat. So that's a must-have. If you're a beginner and you're just thinking, oh God, how do I even start with this? Get a buckwheat. Start small. But that's a great one that will offer that's summer and fall beautiful color. And then here I want to put a plug in for bladder pod, and I actually brought some seeds from our yard. But you can see this is another one that that will bloom almost year round. So here's in spring and here's in fall. And we're going to have those at the plant sale. I want to include a couple of Riverside yards that were on the spring tour. We have Bruce, who's here today. And so this is what, a couple years old, I think?
1 to 2.
Yeah, 1 to 2 years old. And so his input, I asked him, so what did well? What are you happy with that made it through our pretty brutal summer? And he said buckwheats, sages, and most of his manzanitas were the all-stars. I'll talk more about manzanitas, but we're going to have, I think, 6 or 8 varieties of those. It's quite a few. The one that didn't do well for him is he had a low-growing, the prostate manzanita from Northern California that he planted in a sunny area. And he realizes he's got to put those in part shade. So we had some good feedback on that from your planning. And then Jill Stearns, she was also on the tour, again, just a couple years old. Her yard is taken off. Here on the left is a view from the tour. And the ones that she was very excited about were this, it's a type of fuchsia. It's called the Stardust. And I think it's a little harder to find, but she loved it because it's compact. It hasn't gotten over a foot tall, unlike the Catalina fuchsias that you saw again. And then also her desert willow, she loved. So, and I just want to repeat what she said. She's so excited after planning and watching her yard grow, that the Stardust has been blooming nonstop since spring. The desert willow, which is this one right here, has changed most while maintaining its color. When the first sprigs of green appear in the spring, I'm relieved and a bit surprised. As a newcomer to native plants, I'm less confident knowing the difference between dead and dormant. Don't you know that? I face both. The young, slender green leaves turn into a sturdy backdrop for the rich purple flowers that followed. Now these flowers right here have been muted by the fluffy seed pods that have opened a shade of creamy white, which puts the blooms into soft focus. Doesn't that make you want to plant a desert willow? Yeah. And then her other star was the Santa Cruz Island buckwheat. You can see it's by a tree. And I'm being from the Channel Islands, I think some of these buckwheats do a little bit better with some afternoon shade or part shade. But she was really impressed with that one. Carolyn Park, I don't have time to go through this one a lot. It's a over 14 acres park dedicated to native plants and redlands. This is in summer. You can see we have the white from the buckwheats. And then the trees, we have boxelders, buckeye, redbud that are all providing that red and green color. This is in the middle of the summer. And then in the fall, you can see we still have the California Artemisia that's turning a nice color against the green. And then of course the buckwheats that are turning the rusty color. And then I just want to give you another example here. We have California buckeye and California walnut that again offer that nice contrasting color. This is in the fall. Meet Angela Hewitt in Redlands. She'll probably be on the yard tour this year. She's planted her yard relatively new in 23-24. And I love her story. She moved here in 2022. And this was after living in Maryland, where she planted some natives successfully, and in Texas, where she planted some natives that did well. But then when she moved here, she was just scared, you know, how to get started in this California. And she finally had a best friend come visit her and said, you just have to start. And now this used to be all lawn, this in her backyard. And now she's taken it on. So I want to show some of her plants. This was planted in spring 2023. She has a Cleveland sage right here. And then the back, the bush sunflower, California Azalea, that I'll have some more photos of. And this is in June. So April on the left, June on the right. And then farther fast forward, here's June and September, and you can use this as reference. Here's this orange citrus tree, but you've got the elderberry up here that's taken off, and then the Cleveland sage that's blooming in June, and then going to turning its nice rust color in September. And then here's a nice view from the other side. Again, here's that citrus tree that we can use for reference. But she has the blooming Ancelia in the spring. And then you can see that the sage, that Cleveland sage is still looking good, and the Dana Point buckwheat. And then fast forward to fall, the Ancelia is not blooming anymore, but you have the beautiful Dana Point buckwheat in the foreground. So I thought that was some good planning for all the seasons. Here's another one in her front yard. She has some salvias here. On the left is in the spring, tidy tips. Oh, sorry guys.
Very sensitive.
And then on the right, we're trying to get a good photo of it. We've got the fuchsia here, and she said, oh, maybe I should cut back my artemisia and try to resend it to you. And it just wasn't a good time for her to do that. But it shows that sometimes in the summer, our yards can look a little ratty, and that's sometimes how they look. And maybe she can plan it with a little bit less stuff, next time. And then this is looking right there too, looking towards the street. She was really glad that somebody warned her not to plant the coyote brush or coyote bush, up closer, because it did really well in a couple of years. So that's it on the right. And then we still have some desert marigold, which we're going to have at the sale. That's another great one to have.
They
can have it.
the crop failed,
Okay.
unfortunately. Yeah.
We'll get it some.
Sorry.
And then the future.
Yeah.
Okay. And then a few more favorites. We're nearing the end here. I just love our manzanitas. And again, we've been really lucky. But here is some of them start blooming in December. This is a Lester Roundtree that brings the butterflies in. It's just such a wonderful time to watch the bumblebees arrive. And then they seem to, you can pick manzanitas that will bloom at different times. The sunset seems to be one of a little bit later for us. But then here's the Lester Roundtree. The blooms are different colors. That's a nice pink bloom, and with the bumblebee on it. Also available at the plant sale, there's a grape soda lupin in the spring. So this is from our yard with some phacelias and bluebells here. And just to warn you, it can get a little tired looking in the summer, but I think if you have some nice greenery in back of that, it can still look okay. And then on the right, we're going to have sugar bush. I love sugar bush. It's a large plant. We're going to have some at the sale, but it's always pretty. I mean, it's always green. And I think one thing I learned is these plants like toyons and sugar bush, how can they survive? And they send down a really deep taproot early to get established. So it always looks good. And sometimes it has, right now, our sugar bush has white blossoms on it and some of these reddish ones that are turning to brown. So if you have the room, get a sugar bush for year-round color. And then some things that we learned, evening primrose, tried to find out where to plant that. We had common yarrow or the white yarrow in our front facing west, just got hammered, never did well. So now I have it in our rose bed. We inherited this rose bed that I haven't really wanted. I let them die sometimes, but I haven't taken them out. And our evening primrose, which is going to be at the sale, and the yarrow do really well. And then when all else disappoints you, we saw that we had that fountain that was broken. So for us to get it going again, we'd have to dismantle the whole thing. So we thought we'll just put decorations on it. Plus with water use, it was easier to do that way. So here's one of our wall scenes. You can see we still have the fuchsia and the golden bush in the back there, and some of our sage that's looking And then here's another view, same season with the golden bush. Christmas, Santa, the golden bushes are still nice. It's turning a whitish color, so that was offers some nice color. And then St. Patty's Day, here we have ceanothus, some sages, and then the manzanita again, which I love because it's always that bright green. And if we pruned it, we would see the red branches, but not going to see too much of that. We do on the back side, so you have to come to our house and look on the back side, and we'll show you the manzanita, beautiful trunk. This is from obviously 4th of July, and I realized he was looking a little dejected, a little down, but I don't know. This summer was kind of a hard summer in the world, the nation. So I thought it's okay. He can look a little sad. So. But here you see in the summertime, we're having the nice buckwheat on the right. And you can see the Nevins moving in the back there, one of our Nevins. And then we have Buddha that we put up there sometimes. Again, here we have the buckwheat, Nevins, or manzanitas. And when in doubt, we can always put up Baby Yoda. we have him up there fairly often. Although he's getting all sunburned, so now he wears a hat. Okay, I'm gonna open it for questions. I do have this for favorite neighbor plants. I tried to put some of the main ones down on this chart. I'm gonna take a photo of that or just write some of those down. I'll go back to that, but this is my end. Our other parents like manzanita berries too.
Okay, that's the adjusted list.
Great, and here's my contact information. I do have a website because I got so passionate about native plants. I write about our favorite natives, what our process was, but also other things. It's nature could talk, you know, trimming trees. So if you want to hear me say things, go to my website. And there's my contact information. Questions and answers. Hopefully we'll have some answers for you.
Can you put up the other side of all the lists?
Sure. Any questions, comments, corrections, additions? Yes. Okay, just go in the back row in the corner.
Yeah, don't you find that California future is getting basic? The rhizomes, the fences spread beyond where you really want it.
Yes, I think, yeah, I don't know if everybody can hear that about the invasiveness of California fuchsias. Yeah, we didn't plant very many. I think we planted the first couple of years. I think that can be true. We don't mind just because of the color and it brings in so many hummingbirds and bees and that. So, but yes, they can grow quite well.
And some of the cultivars spread a lot more than others.
Okay.
And so like latifolia doesn't really do that.
Latifolia is a tidy one that you
Yeah.
can often find as Everett's choice.
Okay. Yeah. Everett's choice fuchsia is one that's a little more compact.
Yeah.
And that is invasive.
So there's a question online.
Mhm.
How often do you water your established plants in the summer?
Yeah, interesting. I think we have a good handout that will be available at the plant sale, and do we have it on the website? But it will talk about getting plants established. But now that it's established, I think this year we went 3 to 4 weeks without watering, not everything. Like with our manzanitas, one reason why I think we're successful is in San Diego, some would start to not look good in the summer and we would water them, especially the trunk, and they would just die. So now, like with our manzanitas and very established ones, we'll just water the perimeter on a cool day. It looks like it's gonna rain, but either when the temperatures have dropped, which wasn't very often this summer, or when there looked like a threatening of rain, we would pick that day. So usually every 3 weeks, every 4 weeks would be our pattern. Although if we're always plugging in some new natives, so I put in some red berries. And those, of course, I watered more often. That was more like 2 to 3 weeks. So, you know, kind of have to see what the plant is about, how long it's been there, and go accordingly. Yeah.
On that topic, what kind of irrigation do you use? Is it drip or mini sprayers or hand water?
Yeah,
not seen
we had a spray the first year or two, and then it died. And it's now my husband and I, he takes one side, and this is in the front yard. In the back, we tried to incorporate natives to it, and those are on a spray system that's been long established. But in the front yard, we'll get out and hand water, and it's kind of fun. It's not bad, and we avoid some plants that really don't need them, but we're able to water them in person and give them the rain that we want. We'll often do a evening water and then a morning water when things have cooled down. Yeah.
When you say you avoid some plants that need less water, which ones do you avoid in your yard?
Okay, yeah, that's a good question. The manzanita, we really pretty much avoid watering it in the summertime. Like we'll go around the perimeter where we might have some other plants, so we'll get some water there. But those in ceanothus, and I think our ceanothus in the front has all died after about 8-10 years. But that's another one. It would just be around maybe the perimeter when we're watering some other plants. What else am I forgetting? Then like the brittle bush doesn't need a lot.
Do you have flannel bush?
And flannel, oh yeah, there's some. We had a flannel bush. You can get some like Fremantia or flannel bush. If you don't want to deal with any watering, that's a great one to get because you don't need to water it. There's definitely some plants that you don't water at all.
After it's established.
Yeah, after they're established. Yeah, but you really need to work on watering them the first year, 2 years, a little bit more. And if anybody else has another one to add about what not to water, go ahead and chime in. Yeah.
You mentioned a little bit about pruning, how often and what time of year and. all
Yeah.
that.
There's that book, I don't know if it's around still.
Oh, care and maintenance?
Bart O'Brien, yeah. Care and maintenance. Can you
Well,
still
there's
get
the
that?
care and maintenance, wasn't Bart O'Brien, but we still have some copies.
He was one of you.
He was one, okay. And
Yeah.
then, so we have some copies and we'll have them at the plant sale. There are not very many available anymore. It's out of print. But we'll bring a few copies.
Yeah, it's
What's the
care
book
and
called?
maintenance.
Care and
of
maintenance.
Plant gardens.
Native.
And I'm gonna go to my website. I did do an article on the most common ones, writing down about which ones I've learned. Maybe I really pulled them from that book. But if you wanna go to my website and
Yeah.
put in watering.
I mean, there's certain plants that you wait until the end of the summer, beginning of fall, like a lot of the salvias. That's
Right.
the time.
Yeah.
Because if you prune too early, they'll just resprout leaves, and then potentially during the really hot part of the year, which is not so good for them.
Right.
So some plants you can prune almost any time, and others you you have to learn the different ones, like when to prune toyon, when to prune rusilla.
And like manzanitas, we don't prune ours. I mean,
Yeah.
if something is going out into the street, we do, but we would do that when not during rainy season, when it's dormant. So, and there's some plants that you don't want to cut into the old wood, like the sages. That's what happened to us. We didn't really trim those the first years. And then by the time we did, we were cutting into old wood and that probably grow. So there's a lot to learn, but some of these start with the basics and you can slowly learn this.
Right. And CalScape is hoping to put more of that sort of information on the CalScape site eventually. Right?
I would like to say that even though it's for Pasadena area, one really great resource is Barbara Eisenstein's Weeding Wild Suburbia. On her site, she has a schedule.
We have some of those wild suburbia.
She has a book, but
Yeah.
on her website,
On
you
her
could go to
website.
Weeding Wild Suburbia.
sounds
But
good.
I would also make sure
Yeah.
to look at Linda's site because it's more local.
So when we get our website rebuilt, because right now we have a temporary website. And so there's very little information from our chapter on there. That when we rebuild our website, we can put in some of these links because we'll be able to have a tab for those sorts of documents and links.
Good. Yeah, in
So,
the meantime,
for our
we'll
area.
go to Hellscape. That will also show nurseries where
Yeah.
plants are available. So that's a great resource, Hellscape.org. Right?
Mhm.
Yes.
Do you have any recommendations on vines that are California natives that would do well on chain link?
Calisthesia,
Linda,
Somebody else answer.
Linda,
the,
oh, Linda, this is Katie online. I wondered if you could repeat the question so people online can hear, please.
All right. Yeah, we have a
Thank
mic.
you.
Have a mic system that we hope was picking up the questions, but
It's working much better, but still not quite clear for all the questions. Thank you.
was vine growing plants along a fence.
And great.
He's looking for recommendations.
Yes. So Lorraine Fuentes has some answers.
the island morning glory, calisthesia, macrosthesia.
Mhm.
It's pink flowering. It's really nice, and then also the California wild grape. The Rogers Red is a really nice variety. And I think it's really important that it'll take a couple years or maybe more, but that you recognize the difference between dead and dormant. Don't try to water some things if they look dead in the end of summer or through summer, like your Canyon Gray, like your Fremontia, like your woolly blue curls and those kinds of things.
Yes.
Don't water them.
Yeah.
If you do water in the area, water away from the trunk and water deep.
Yeah.
On the drip line or the perimeter of the plant. But you just gotta live with a sort of ratty looking garden in late summer. And that's from the middle of August through the middle of October. And it's okay, go on vacation. Forget about your plants.
Yeah.
But when it starts to rain again, they'll just come back. That's a really important thing. It took me a long time to be self-disciplined not to water those things in August and September. Okay.
And you can definitely have a native plant garden where you don't do any watering then, you can have enough of these really green plants too, like a
Yeah,
tomato or
you
a
just
sugar
have to
bush
learn
that will
what-
have that color.
You have to learn what to water and what not to water. If they're in pots, of course, you need to water them because
Yeah.
pots dry out so fast.
Yeah.
But if they're in the ground,
Yeah.
just live with it.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that we'll have 10 1-gallon pots of Calisthesia, macrosthesia, the island morning glory.
Okay, there's
And
gonna
you
be
only
10
need
10
one.
plants of
Yeah.
10 gallons of the island morning glory.
Yeah, and then we have wild grape, but it's not the Rogers Red.
Either one of them is good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There will be,
Wild grape is a really good one. We have that.
Yeah,
We
we'll
haven't
have 3 of
too
them.
shady of an area, so it likes, some sun.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Linda, I have a question online.
Sure.
The question is, could you please talk a little bit about how you water your garden in summer? I'm fairly new to caring for native plants, and I think I overwatered the first year and killed some plants. Then I was afraid to water at all in summer, and I killed more plants.
Okay, yeah, we talked a little bit about that, but that, especially this year, it was a real dilemma. It was so hot in July and August.
September.
Again, it's like if you do, sometimes it does rain here in the summertime. And if it looks like it's spitting rain and it's cooled down a little bit, that could be a time for watering some of the plants. As we talked about, there's some that you don't want to ever water the trunk, like the manzanitas and some of your ceanothus, if you have Fremontia. So it really does vary a little bit. And you're gonna lose some. You're gonna lose some from overwatering and from underwatering.
Well, and the other thing is when you plant them, it's best not to
Yeah.
plant during the spring and the summer. It's better to plant your California natives in the late fall, early winter, so they can take advantage of that soil moisture and the rains and become somewhat established before summer so that you don't have to water them as much to get them through that first summer.
Yeah, I will reiterate
Yeah.
what Arlie said. We learned that the hard way. When we plant in October, November, but you might still have to water to get them established if the rains haven't started. They do much better when we decide, oh, maybe we can sneak this in March or April, but the chance of them surviving goes way down. So plant early. Yes.
Can you talk about pre-watering, watering a couple days before the heat wave is supposed to hit?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Again, it's kind of looking at the weather.
Mhm.
If you see a hot spell coming, you have some, couple year plants, you see it's going to cool down, do it before the heat wave arrives. So you do have to be checking your weather. And again, it's watered deeply
Mhm.
and infrequently for the ones that can take water.
Yeah. And not in the heat of the day.
And not in the heat of the day. That's how we've also killed plants. Don't water in the heat of the day. You will probably lose it. Yes,
Yeah.
back there.
One plant that's very
Not watering the
durable
heat
is
of the day.
Jessica, the California honeysuckle or desert honeysuckle.
Justicia.
And what is the question? And I'll repeat it.
No, I'm just recommending Jessica.
Oh, okay.
I didn't see it mentioned.
Oh, great.
Jessica, the desert
Just
honeysuckle.
Justicia.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or Chuparosa.
Or tuberosa.
We call it-
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's-
we're calling, yeah, we'll have some of those at the
Okay.
sale.
I have had bad luck with it. I've tried it
Well, it like,
3 times and it's just.
Yeah.
I think I have one that's still alive.
that does very well in Riverside.
Okay.
Yeah, we're a bit hotter and drier in Riverside than in Redwood.
We have more of a clay soil.
Yeah.
The good thing is at the plant sale, we're gonna have a lot of experts there. You can talk to folks about what your soil is, where you live, and get some recommendations from people at the plant sale. So,
Right.
Linda, I have another question from the chat. I don't think this got asked. It's what do you mean by water deeply?
Oh. Don't water for like 5 minutes. Let the water soak way into the soil. Those native plants have deep roots. So you have to let it run for a little bit, for like an hour if you want. So the water goes down to the deep roots.
yeah, if you're doing a,
But you're doing that once a month, in the summer.
if you're doing that with just a dripping hose, like an hour and just moving it around. My husband and I, if we're hand watering, we'll go out at dusk, when it's cooled down before a heat wave, and maybe do 30 minutes or more, and then actually repeat it often the next morning, before the sun, as the sun is coming up. So we feel like that kind of gives that deep watering. Yeah.
How about for placement in your garden? How'd you come up with what's gonna live there where and what to put where?
Yeah, we'll go back to the first one. It's kind of common sense too, but you look at what the height, you have to study them a little bit. If you're getting a manzanita that grows really big, you need to put that in the back, because you wanna have people be able to see things. And like the Cleveland sage, we planted that towards the back of our front yard, and then kind of gradated it depending on what the size would be.
Right.
And also keep in mind color. I think a lot of us, when talking to people, we didn't really think about color so much when we were initially planting, and now it's more when we're adding, we realize, oh, this could use more color here. So that's the other planting part is,
Right.
you saw that Encelia, the nice yellow, and then it was taken over by the buckwheat later in the summer. So you can do some planting that way with size that I consider too.
Short stuff in front. The other thing is not planting too close together,
Right.
leaving plenty of
Yeah.
space. You can always put annuals in between.
Yes.
And then the other thing is to hydrozone. So don't put plants that need more water right next to plants that don't need any water or very
Yeah.
little water. So there's planning involved in hydrozoning. So if you're putting in a desert garden, you you don't want to mix all your desert plants with all your chaparral plants, for example. So just, think about what plants require in nature in the season that they get their water and their rain. And
And we had a lot of mortality in San Diego, so we overplanted in Redlands. And most everything survived, like we had manzanitas right next to a ceanothus, and it was like, luckily the ceanothus eventually died because there's no way all 3 of those were gonna make it in 15 feet long. So yeah, sometimes that happens, you're not sure and you overplant. Well, they'll probably take care of themselves. Yes.
About soil, a couple of questions. One is, do you use any kind of a fertilizer or something that resembles a fertilizer? And secondly, do you mulch?
Yeah, and it's funny with the mulching. My husband being with the Forest Service, he thinks we really shouldn't be mulching so much. You want to look at where that plant came from. If it's a forest plant, that's gonna get more debris down. If it's a desert plant, you're not gonna really want the mulch. So it kind of depends. And again, we do use some mulch, especially since we're watering less often, but we won't put it right up to the plant to make sure it's around the outside of the plant. Your other question was, soil type?
fertilizer.
Fertilizer, yeah. Generally, no. I mean, maybe in a pot, I have some compost tea, on some of my potted plants that I will use. I don't know if that's right or not, but no, we didn't. It was a former lawn that had died for a while. We didn't do anything, and things did really well in that. I kind of wondered, oh, now it's a former lawn, we'll do all right. It did great. We have never augmented with any fertilizers. There are some exceptions to that. I think if you have a lot of clay or a lot of rocks, but I would consult somebody who knows more on that. There are some rare occasions where you might need to.
If you have annual lupins that come up in the spring, they add a little bit of nitrogen to the soil. It's kind of a natural fertilizer.
That's true.
They have bacteria in their roots that can use nitrogen from the atmosphere.
And we have a lot of nitrogen deposition in our area.
Yeah, we got a lot of natural fertilizer, unnatural fertilizer from air pollution. So.
Right.
And I just want to say I'm open. I have people come over to our yard and walk around. If you're new and you want to get to know plants, so feel free to contact me. Should we be at a closing point, or is there time? Yeah.
One more question. Did you bring any chocolate lilies with you from San Diego?
No, but you see, we planted dragon trees because we love dragon trees from the Canary Islands, and that was in Balboa Park, and one didn't make it. They aren't happy here. It was another example of like planting things native. No, I have seen chocolate lilies in person. We have them around here too.
Yeah, we have chocolate lilies in like Hartford Springs and Santa Rosa Plateau and places like
Yeah,
that.
that would be great. That's a beautiful lily. If people haven't seen it, look it up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Clay soil.
They might be available from a nursery up north.
Yeah, check on Hellscape. Check on Hellscape. You can probably find them.
Yeah, if you have clay soil, that's a good
Okay,
one.
One more.
Do you have a date for the inland garden tour?
Oh, yeah.
What's that now?
Do you have a date already
Oh,
for the
yes.
tour?
We're looking at the last Saturday in March because July gets so busy. There's so many things going on. We're looking at the 29th of Saturday. So I think that's going to go of March.
You mean April gets so
April.
busy?
Sorry, April gets real busy. So we're doing.
Yeah.
I've been up here too long. The last weekend in March, probably that Saturday, the 29th. So we're looking for homes to show too. It's always good to show some new ones. So keep that in mind. There'll be a lot more information about it. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Say thank you.
Oh, yeah. So I just wanted to thank everybody for attending, and thank you, Linda, very much.
I'd
That
love
was
to have
a
another
great
one of those.
presentation. And we're going to go ahead and sign off. We're going to stop our share and we're going to stop the Zoom. But